The beginning of the day one pay-per-view started off kind of slow, and for that matter, kind of, except for the match. The first match started off pretty fast. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, and my name is Mocha, is what you can call me. My true name, my real name is Robert Van Adder. And you can Google me if you so feel like it, because I have nothing to hide from the public eye, and for that matter, I have nothing to hide from you, the public people. Now, what I would like to do now is take some time to talk a little bit about the scheduling of this podcast. I do apologize for being all over the place. I would say, but it's my podcast, and it's my rules, so you can get over it. But that's not what I'm going to say. What I am going to say is that the podcasting scheduling has been quite hard for me to get my head around, because I work 5 hours. 5 hours? Holy crap. I work 5 to 6 days a week. So whenever I come home, the last thing that I'm worried about is, of course, what I want to do for real whenever it comes to whenever it actually comes to doing the podcast that I have set up and therefore tried to commence to doing. In that regard, I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen, that it's being later and later throughout the week that I've been. It's almost like I'm putting it off, but I'm not. Okay? I want to address this. I want to make sure that my audience understands that I am in no way whatsoever trying to get away from this platform. I just started. I did record this, however. Just not on this app that I'm using right now called QuickTime Player. I recorded this episode on another app, and on that app named Voice Memos, I figured since it was called Voice Memos that I should start recording from that. And it does allow me to edit my recording, unlike the one that I'm using right now. Doesn't allow me to. The one that I'm using right now, QuickTime Player, is the name of the app, and it doesn't allow me to record, edit my recording. It just allows me to record and then post. At least that's all that I'm seeing, and I've been using it for quite some time, since about October. Of course, my point being is that I am apologizing to you, the public, because it is now Sunday whenever you will get to hear this. I promised you content every Thursday, and now it's been moved over to Friday. However, my work schedule, probably something that you wasn't planning on hearing about. Next week, we will be covering my favorite Royal Rumble event. It's my favorite because, in my own opinion, it is the most entertaining Royal Rumble that you will come across in the world of wrestling. Now, allow me to say that again. It is the most entertaining Royal Rumble event. I said Royal Rumble event, because overall the card to that event is one that I grew up watching. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, not 5 times, probably countless fucking times. Enough times to where I could probably write down the match cards from actual memory if I wanted to. I would imagine. That's how many times that I've seen the Royal Rumble in question. Now, I can't remember whether it was the 1999 Royal Rumble or whether it was the 2000 or the 2001 Royal Rumble. So I'm going to have to do some digging, maybe, some Googling, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Boom, chickadee, bound chicka wow wow, do a little bit of watching some previews, watching some YouTube, Googling here and there, and making sure that I've got the right formula, or for that matter, that I've got the right match card, because I would hate to tell you that, oh, this is my favorite Royal Rumble, and then go back and then watch Royal Rumble from 1999, and then me be like, oh, well, I've never seen this one before, even though I just got done telling you that I'd seen it 25 times. My point, of course, being is that, and this is my own personal opinion, you're obviously here for my expert opinion, so if that's the case, then why don't you take a seat? You grab you a cold drink, or some hot tea, hot cocoa, whatever it is that you're drinking. Hopefully it's not beer. But nonetheless, what I mean to say is that day one pay-per-view is what we're here to review. And we're just going to jump right into it. Not only that, but we're also going to review the New Year's Evil pay-per-view, which recently happened. Last Tuesday, if I do remember correctly, from the time that this is being recorded. So, what I'd like to go ahead and do now is introduce you to Michael Cole. Hello again, everybody. I'm Michael Cole here, and Michael Cole had 2 people on the commentary desk beside of him. Corey Graves, I do believe, was one of them. I don't think Byron Saxton was the other one. And I know for sure that it wasn't Booker T that was beside of him. And it's hard to hear Michael Cole because of the bumping music behind him. And I said this before about the music that was playing a little bit too loud. Whoever was in charge of that, turning the bass up, they went a little bit too hard on that one. What they need to do is probably just calm down, take a step back, take a breath, not do that. Like, they're not outside my door, For those of you who don't know, during the summertime, I am a victim of people who drive by my house with their music bumping way too loud. And of course, this is a small nitpick. This is just the beginning of the show. Maybe I should just let it go. Maybe I shouldn't be dwelling on it too much. But whenever I'm a victim of something like that, it really makes me mad. That's what I call small dick energy. Now, small dick energy is like you're compensating for something because your dick is literally maybe about 7 inches shorter than the average dick. This reminds me of MJF being called, either he said CM Punk either called him a needle dick or a pencil dick, but I'm pretty sure it was a needle dick. He said, if you don't shut up, I'm going to punch you straight in your needle dick. And then the whole crowd freaking kept chanting, needle dick, needle dick, needle dick. And something else that this reminds me of is a segment from Family Guy. A segment from Family Guy, nonetheless, where, and I don't remember, it's a movie called Very Loud Trumpet or something like that. There was like a cutaway movie called Very Loud Trumpet, and he said, and it shows like three guys sitting at a table, and it looks like that they're like the mafia, and he's trying to explain to the other two guys, it looks like that there's like a Don, and he's trying to explain to the other two guys that he's going to have to bring in somebody from Yonkers. And then he said, what? And then there's like this trumpet, this guy playing this like trumpet, and he's playing it all too loud. And then he said, we're going to have to bring in somebody from Yonkers. It's absurdly hilarious. But that's how I felt Michael Cole was, that he was the guy that was trying to talk over the idiot playing the trumpet in this segment. And like I said, I know that it's a small nitpick, and the only thing that I could understand that Michael Cole actually said, and the only part of news that actually mattered, if you didn't have anything outside of Twitter, like if you were Amish and you were somehow watching this because you were a wrestling fan, no disrespect to the Amish, but if you were a wrestling fan and you were somehow watching this, only thing that Michael Cole actually says is that, sad news, ladies and gentlemen, Roman Reigns cannot compete in the match that he was scheduled to compete in. But good news, Brock Lesnar can compete in the match that he was supposed to compete in. Or rather, not supposed to compete in, but Brock Lesnar can compete. So he's already in the building. We're just going to go ahead and add him to the main event, because we know that you guys secretly love Brock Lesnar. You love him. You dirty bastard. You love him. Shh. You love him. But we'll get to that soon, how much people love Brock Lesnar. Kofi and Woods Oh, okay. So last week, or 2 weeks ago, rather, from SmackDown, past SmackDown event, Kofi and Woods beat the tag champions, the Usos, because the ref missed the tag from Jimmy to Jay, telling Jimmy to get back into the onto the apron, basically. Or I'm sorry, from Jimmy to Jay, telling Jay to get back onto the apron. Telling Jimmy to get back into the match, rather, because Jimmy was the man trying to tag in his cousin Jay. My fault. The champions, the Usos, though, the Usos, who Michael Cole keeps referring to as the Bloodline for whatever reason, think about it this way. The Bloodline would be Jimmy Uso, Jay Uso, and Roman Reigns. Much like in AEW, there's a three-man group called Death Triangle. And Death Triangle is made up of three men. However, whenever you split those three men apart and you only get two out of the three men, you still have a group. The Usos, of course, being 2/3 of the Bloodline. That's the way that I see it, is that the Bloodline would include Roman Reigns. Death Triangle would include Pac, but with that bastard Pac still being out of the picture, the two that you would have remaining is Rey Fenix and Penta. And Rey Fenix Jr. and Penta Jr. still make up the Lucha Bros, or the Lucha Brothers. So the point, of course, that I'm trying to get across is that Michael Cole had no business really calling them the Bloodline if the Bloodline wasn't fully there. And also, fun fact, Jimmy and Jay, this was their 167th day as tag team champions. Almost a year, or almost a half a year rather, almost 6 months. And this is also their 7th tag team reign, according to Michael Cole. I'll just take his word for it. Nonetheless, this match was off the walls. It was high-flying, very, very fast-paced, and it was beautiful. This was one of 2 matches that I gave 5 stars. 5 out of 5 stars. Ladies and gentlemen, I am the person who reviews these matches. I don't have a team behind me. I feel that it's important that you know that because of one certain reason. Dave Meltzer, whatever his name is, Dave Metzer, he claims that he has a team behind him, but the only person that ever gets credit for anything that Dave Meltzer reports on is Dave Meltzer. You don't hear anyone else's name being mentioned. So I want it to be very clear. I'm the only person who gives you content at this caliber on this channel. Anyway, I want it to be extremely clear that if I'm competing with Dave Meltzer, if he's got a newsletter, I've got a podcast. And soon, I will have a Discord. And soon, I will write a book. And soon, I might even run my own fucking website. And that should outnumber his fucking newsletter. I'm not even sure where his newsletter is. DaveMeltzer.com on Wikipedia. TheWrestlingObserver.com probably. Yeah, he probably runs a website. But he doesn't have his own Discord. So, coming soon to a website near you. Nonetheless, after the great performance that they give off, and here's something else that I wanted to talk about really fast. Promise. We're just going to speed run through it. Here's what's going to happen, okay? You ready? Okay. Whenever you see a boxing card, or for that matter, a UFC card, you expect the matches to, okay, so the undercard and the beginning, like, let's say the beginning, the opening act, how do I put this? The opening act should be people that you don't know that are fighting for a UFC contract, you know? Let's say that, for instance, just as a for instance. Hypothetical, if you will. In every weight class. Let's say that there's 3 of those fights, people fighting for a UFC contract, whoever wins or whoever goes the distance. If they go the distance, which is 3 rounds, 3 5-minute rounds, if you can go the distance, then you'll both get UFC contracts. Let's put it that way. Because that's how UFC used to do it after their Ultimate Fighting competition. After their, they would pit 2 coaches against each other. Something of that nature. The Ultimate Fighter. And if that's the case, you'd figure that these matches would get, if those were your first 3 matches, and then your next 2 matches were your co-main events, and then you had your main event, right? You'd figure it would go down the line from who's getting paid more, and who's getting the most merchandise sales, and who's the most popular, and who's the inherently arguably the better performers, Like the main eventers are supposed to be the better performers inherently, right? I want you to keep that in mind, by the way. This is the first time that I'm going to mention that, but it's probably not going to be the last time that I'm going to mention that. Because once you go down the card, you should inherently get better performances. You should see something that's taking your breath away, that's keeping you on the edge of your seat. Like this tag team match that we just seen. If you watched the pay-per-view, then you know what I'm talking about. This was a very, very good performance, and it was only the opening act. I didn't watch the pre-show. All that I seen from the pre-show was that Ridge Holland got his nose broke thanks to a botched 450 splash done by Ricochet for one reason or another. It looked like Cesaro was pushing Ricochet, and Ricochet sort of just bopped, sort of like slapped very loudly, if you will. If you're wearing headphones, I do apologize for that noise. But slapped very loudly, or stepped on and crunched Ridge Holland's nose. Ouch. But nonetheless, this 5 out of 5 stars match was beautifully put together. Good work, WWE. Good work. And then you get an interview with Big E Langston. Langston, who says that he will walk through fire tonight. And he will prevail. You're still WWE champion. The funny thing that Big E reminds me of is the fact that he is a soulful African American man. This is going to sound a little off color, racist, perhaps, but it's not. I assure you, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, I'd recorded this once before on a different app, and I'm trying to make some of the same jokes that I made on the first recording. So, here's one of those jokes that I made. Is that when Rosa Parks stood up and she refused, or rather, she sat down, she didn't stand up. When Rosa Parks sat down and refused to give the white man her seat, refused to go to the back of the bus, I feel as though that's what Big E Langston was saying here. That he refuses to give the white man his championship. And he would walk through fire in order to stop the white man from getting his championship. He will be oppressed no more. Black History Month is coming up, guys. Come on. Just cut me a deal here. Cut me a break, I mean, it's not really coming up. I mean, it's not like it's the last week of January. But nonetheless, what I mean to say is that this was a soulful moment for Big E Langston. If you haven't seen the interview, I would highly advise that you go see it. Nonetheless, Madcap Riddick Moss versus Drew McIntyre. And honestly, if I didn't hate Madcap Riddick Moss so much, like, I just don't understand his gimmick. What the hell is a madcap? Can somebody explain that to me? Is it like when someone says cap or kappa, and then they kind of like that's not what they mean? And honestly, I was expecting it to be like a 4-minute match, and McIntyre just beats the holy hell out of him. But Riddick Moss put up quite a fight, even with Corbin in his corner. Corbin never really interfered that I could see. And for that matter, I enjoyed this match more than what I should. I feel like, we had this 5 out of 5 stars match right here, and that's once again my opinion. I'm giving these matches a rating based on how entertaining that they are and based on the physicality that I'm seeing. And had that been the case, I'm seeing a lot of physicality and I'm seeing a lot of entertaining moves being done aside from the commentary. Sometimes I feel like I should just turn them, like press the mute button on my laptop or turn my phone volume all the way down. But nonetheless, what I mean to say is that despite the fact that there was terrible commentary, this match went down and it was amazing. And I wasn't expecting such a performance from Madcap Riddick Moss. I was assuming that he was just there to job for Drew McIntyre in like a 4-minute squash match. You know how whenever you've seen James Ellsworth, or for that matter, you've seen someone and you knew, hey, look, this person's about to lose because they're facing fucking Braun Strowman, Like, we all know that Vince McMahon likes these bigger talents, these bigger guys. So we expect the smaller guys to lose. My cat's about to burn its face off with a candle. I'm gonna have to stop it. Hang on. Okay. She learned her lesson. She didn't get burned or anything. She just learned that fire, the candle that she was smelling, fire is intense, and she kept like winking or like closing her eyes every time that she would put her face into the flame. Closer and closer, and then she's like, can't handle the heat. Need to get down. Anyway, sorry about that. I wasn't expecting Riddick Moss to put up such a fight. You're gonna learn, cat. You're gonna learn. It's like having children. I wasn't expecting Madcap Riddick Moss to put up such a fight, but I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because I expected Drew McIntyre to win. I just expected him to win quicker and make faster work of Riddick Moss, and I'm glad that Moss put up a fight. I really am. Nonetheless, we cut to complete static. Honestly, guys, there was like a complete, almost like after that match, you just don't see anybody. And then all of a sudden, it cuts to like a 3-second clip of Kevin Owens, and he says, Owens calls Sami Zayn his, quote, soulmate. I put a question mark after that, because if Kevin Owens is gay, that's Kevin Owens' agenda. That's his own personal beliefs. But here, I don't like to pick on the LGBT 2Q plus community or anything like that. But I don't know how to say this, but how is he your soulmate, Kevin? Please explain. Just not right now. Maybe later. Plus, I've spent too much time talking about Cannonball Owens on my channel, on my platforms. Nonetheless, once the complete static goes away, after Owens calls Sami Zayn his soulmate, he then cries about Brock Lesnar being added to the match at the main event. You want to know what's funny about that? Is the fact that Owens inherently lied in order to get to this point, and he thought that he was just going to have an easy ride from, it was just going to be him, Big E Langston, and Seth Rollins. But that's not the case. Now, had it been me, honestly, and this is what I said on the first recording, so I may as well say it here. I sent a tweet out that said that Rollins versus Reigns changed my mind, but Rollins versus Reigns is a lot better than The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, that is an arguably hard pill to swallow, because a lot of people, every time that they would see Austin versus The Rock, whether it be at WrestleMania, one-on-one, in a tag team match, where they were inherently feuding with each other, at a SummerSlam event, which I'm sure that they've fought at SummerSlam, at Survivor Series, I'm sure that they fought at Survivor Series, in one way, shape, form, or another. It didn't matter what the event was, whether it be Backlash, whether it be Over the Edge. I know that they had one or two events called that, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. It didn't matter what the event was, what day of the week it was, what month it was, or for that matter, whether it was 2009, or even though that inherently they weren't on the roster, both of them weren't on the roster at 2009. My point is, it could have been 1999, could have been 2009. Whenever they faced off, they always, and I mean this, they always had chemistry. Every time. The same can be said for Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. That's why, in the first recording, I gave a little bit of fantasy booking. Here's exactly how I would have done it. Fatal 4-way match. That's what we're going to do, right? Langston versus Rollins versus Owens. Sorry, I almost threw up in my mouth. Versus Lashley. Okay? Here's what we're going to do. Tell Brock Lesnar to stay home. He's not needed here. His part-time contract, they want to do budget cuts. Why not cut Lesnar? Why not cut Brock Lesnar? He does nothing for the company. He does nothing for the brand. All right, Cat. But anyway, Fatal 4-way, and what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to allow Big E Langston to retain his title. Now, Langston has retained his championship. He's beaten one of the other three without making one of those other three look like a complete and utter jobber in Seth Rollins. Rollins then wins the Royal Rumble. Whenever he does win the Royal Rumble, he gets... And it sucks that they don't have two Royal Rumbles anymore. Like a SmackDown and a Raw. No, but all they have now is the one Royal Rumble where almost like in 2005 where Dave Bautista got to choose whether or not he wanted to go to SmackDown and wrestle The Undertaker or whether or not he wanted to stay on Raw and wrestle Triple H. Or JBL, not The Undertaker. JBL was the champion at the time. Because I remember just recently watching promos about JBL talking to Batista before he made the decision to give Triple H the thumbs down and then put Triple H through a table, which gave us the WrestleMania match before Evolution broke up, or after Evolution broke up. It's not the point. The point is that I would have Rollins win the Royal Rumble, chase Roman Reigns, and then there you have your main event for either their first day of WrestleMania or their second day. But either way, you're going to have a main event regardless of what day of WrestleMania. I don't know why they can't just do it all at one time. Where's the time restraints? And it probably cost them a lot more money to rent an arena for 2 fucking days. Are you joking? Like, what if someone shows up for the first day of WrestleMania but not the second day, you know? Does the event still go on? And what I mean by that is that how do you sell out a building? You know? Like, oh, I bought a ticket, but it's only for WrestleMania Day 1. You know? I can't buy one for Day 2. They're too expensive to buy 2 goddamn tickets for 2 goddamn days. But anyway, we're still on page 1 of this right here, and freaking 40 minutes in. Here's how I would have booked it. And I'm not going to talk about the Fatal 4-Way too much more. The Fatal 5-Way, rather. But I would have booked it as a Fatal 4-Way. E would have won. Rollins would have won the Royal Rumble thereafter. Or, for that matter, we just seen Tommaso Ciampa, right? He lost his NXT championship to Braun Breaker, and we were going to get to that too. But that match sucked. It just sucked. I was expecting it to go a lot longer. I was expecting there to be a lot more. There was one spot that I enjoyed a lot. That was the corkscrew flyover that Tommaso Ciampa did whenever he did the tope suicida, because they can't say suicide on TV because it's PG, but it's basically the suicide dive, or they say the crossbody through the ropes, which it's not called the crossbody through the ropes, it's basically a suicide dive. But after that, we get a okay, so they showed a clip. They showed a clip whenever they were showing Seth Rollins' package for him. For whatever reason, they were showing a clip for Seth Rollins. Like, they were doing it for every one of the Fatal 5-Way participants, too. They would show, like, clips and packages put together, showing all of their career highlights, and everything that they would say good about them. Like, he is the Monday Night Messiah. He is Seth Rollins. There had to be a sacrifice made, Ray. And then, of course, everything that led up to him and Buddy Murphy are unstoppable. And then they would show, like, clip after clip after clip. But here's the heartbreaking part. You really want to know the heartbreaking part? It's the fact that whenever they got to the Shield breakup segment, now in that video package, if you remember, there's a video package where they zoom in really, really far into Dean Ambrose's face And it shows like the shock on his face whenever he noticed that there was a chair in Seth Rollins' hands, and he basically took out Roman Reigns whenever Roman collapses on the floor from being hit from the chair. In the clip, that Triple H's voice is heard when he says, "There's always a plan B." Whenever Rollins, of course, betray his Shield brethren, well, instead of seeing Dean Ambrose's face get zoomed in on really fast, you see Dean Ambrose barely in the shot. Even though he is in the shot, whenever you rewind 15 seconds or 10 seconds, you can barely see him almost like turn around for that zoom in motion that they used to do, because they want you to forget about Dean Ambrose. Dean Ambrose? Who's that? John Moxley? Oh, the guy over here? You want to know what else they did? There's a mobile game called WWE Supercard. They took Daniel Bryan out of the card pulls. So whenever you go to pull certain superstars or certain cards, they took him out of it. Even though he's still a champion, you can still pick him as a profile picture. If you've played the game, you know what I'm talking about. You can pick him and set him as your profile avatar picture. But one thing that you can't do is you can't pull him from the draft board anymore. Anyway, once again, I'm getting off topic. I do apologize for that. There's so much to talk about. Seth Rollins, the Raw Tag Team Champions. Okay, this match sucked. That's all that I'm going to say. 2 out of 5 stars. Yep, that's exactly what I gave it. I had to look for a minute. But the Raw Tag Team titles, it was like, oh, look at that. 1 RKO. 1, 2, 3. 1 and done. Okay, on to the next match. And they spent so much time with the Migos or the Mangos or the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Whoever it was who was at ringside, and it was the only reason I give it 2 out of 5 stars. If I'm being honest, the Street Profits pretty much carried this match. Riddle didn't do shit. He didn't do nothing. He was in the match for maybe a cup of coffee, and then that was it. He tags in Randy like twice. They hit an RKO, and the funny part is that Randy's in the corner, and then Orton pokes Montez Ford in the eye. Perhaps a little bit of dirtiest player in the game. I mean, he learned it from Woo! He learned it from someone, you know. I am the jet flying, ass kissing, wheeling dealing. Riddle performs a version of a Pele kick. Graves calls it an overhead kick. And Riddle with the overhead kick. You stupid son of a bitch. It's a Pele kick. Once again, that's a nitpick. I'm not going to spend 10 minutes talking about it. Not even half as good as the opening was. RKO and almost no edge of seat feeling. And the Mingos, the Mangos, they end up showing up and they end up staying in the ring forever. I mean, I can remember seeing them coming into the ring, and then I kept pressing the fast forward 15 seconds, fast forward 15 seconds, fast forward 15 seconds, and I probably pressed it 4 or 5 times before they finally cut to the next thing. And then Corbin, of course, gets ambushed by, Corbin and Moss ambushed Drew McIntyre. Kaylee Braxton interviews Brock Lesnar, and he gets a huge pop. Brock Lesnar just gets this overwhelming yeah. Almost like these people were cheering for Brock Lesnar after he winks at them and says, "I'm walking away WWE champion." And that's not a prediction. That's a spoiler. And then he winks. One thing that I found very entertaining was the from the Miz and Edge match was the old entrance from Edge. They tried to make it seem like it was Edge's old entrance, even though inherently it was Gangrel's old entrance, if you think about it. But Edge just so happened to be a part of that gang. Just so happened to be a part of that trio. And they were called, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I don't remember whether they were called Blood Rising or New Blood Rising. I'm joking. They were called The Brood. New Blood Rising was a WCW reference. Look it up. That was one of the best things that I'd ever seen, though, was Edge coming out to the Gangrel music and the whole, I was like, oh my god, it's Halloween all over again, you know, and behind Edge was the stage crew members. They tried to hide themselves by putting like towels over their heads or whatever so that they could put out the fire. I was like, oh my god, these people, they're so funny. They're so funny, I swear, they're too funny. An interview with Bobby Lashley. This is a nitpick though. Calls a suicide dive across body through the ropes. As I stated before. The next match on our card was the Liv Morgan Becky Lynch. Lynch, who is our Raw Women's Championship, and like I said, the first match on the card got 5 out of 5 stars. It was our first match to get 5 out of 5 stars. I'm not hard to impress, like I said, ladies and gentlemen. I review these matches, and I'm not a hard person to impress. But sometimes these matches really take the cake, and sometimes they really take the poop. The people boo Becky. I'm confused as to why they would boo Becky but cheer Brock. And also cheer Seth if he's not supposed to be, like, is he supposed to be a heel? I feel like the visionary Seth Rollins is supposed to be a heel. You shouldn't cheer heels. You're enabling their it's called positive feedback, you know? You don't give them No. Like I said last week or this week we're going to be reviewing the one of the Royal Rumble events. And it won't be one that has Shawn Michaels in it, probably. At number 1. Okay, so we're not going to do that whole fiasco. For those of you who don't know, there are 2 people who have entered and won the Royal Rumble at the number 1 spot. Chris Benoit and Shawn Michaels. Nonetheless, the Raw Women's Championship, it was a great back and forth. Most of the highlights, though, honestly, go to Liv Morgan and her beautiful performance. Seth gives Hulk Hogan promo saying, "What am I gonna do?" So basically, the interviewer, whoever the interviewer was, I want to say it was a woman, but I'm not sure. But anyway, whoever the interviewer was, basically asked Seth, what is he going to do? And he reiterates that by saying, what am I going to do? Almost like Hulk Hogan, whenever he would say, what you gonna do, brother, when these 24-inch pythons and this 12-inch dick gets a hold of you, brother? Okay, Hogan wouldn't say that, but you get what I mean. Miz versus Edge. Beth Phoenix got the distraction. I forgot that I didn't give this match a review. I do apologize for that. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Almost a 4-star match, but I felt like it got bogged down by the whole Beth Phoenix thing, even though I predicted it. I did predict it to a friend of mine. I told him that Beth Phoenix was going to show up at one point or another, and he told me, no, that's not going to happen. Oh, look at that. Oh, look who was right. Because Maurice kept getting involved. So, who better to deal with Maurice other than the husband of another wrestler? Oh, look at that. Chemistry. Oh, look at that. A full circle. Oh, look at that. It all worked itself out. The Fatal 5-Way match between Big E, Lashley, Owens, Rollins, and Lesnar. 2 out of 5 stars. Honestly, there's no point in having Brock Lesnar as your champion because he is a part-time champion, if you think about it. So they're already giving away a result. I'm not sure where it's going to happen. I'm not sure when it's going to happen. But if Lesnar was to survive, let's say, the Royal Rumble, whoever he's going to face at the Rumble, let's say that it's Bobby Lashley, like they're saying that it's going to be. Let's say that Lesnar survives Bobby Lashley. Let's say that we go further down the line and we say that Lesnar then goes up against someone else and he survives them at the next pay-per-view. March. I don't know. I never looked at their pay-per-view scheduling, so I don't know what's coming up for March. And then let's say for May that Lesnar survives his next opponent and he takes it to WrestleMania. He's going to lose at WrestleMania if that's the case. He's going to lose somewhere down the line here because he is a part-time champion. Understand that, ladies and gentlemen, that 3 out of the 4 weeks in a month, he's going to be home doing nothing. Or he's going to send a tweet. I really don't think that Brock Lesnar knows how to tweet. And for that matter, even if he does know how to tweet, what difference does it make? That's not an active champion. That's not a champion that's showing up each and every week. That's scouting talents. And for that matter, that's giving like, hey, boss, I think that my next competitor, my next challenger should be, and then telling the boss who it is that you think your next challenger should be because you feel like that they've earned it. No, that's not an active champion. That was 2 out of 5 star match. I should have gave it 1 out of 5 stars, but you know what? I've seen worse matches. Really, I have. That Bobby Lashley spot where he speared Lashley, he speared Lesnar through his shoes. That was pretty dope. Yep, I already said that. Okay. New Year's Evil. So, this first match is kind of wonky. It's Carmelo Hayes versus Roderick Strong. And the reason that I say that it's kind of wonky is because the announcer who has the microphone, who's basically saying, and his opponent and their opponent, weighing such pounds, whatever. The ring announcer is what I'm trying to say, and not the commentator. Says something along the lines of, says that both titles are on the line, but then goes on to say that the winner will be recognized as the North American champion. The reason that I put a question mark after that was because that is the most confusing dog shit that I've ever heard in my entire life. Both titles are on the line. Both Carmelo Hayes with the North American Championship and Roderick Strong with the Cruiserweight Championship is on the line. So why in the fuck would... Let's say that Roderick was to win. Let's say that Carmelo Hayes was to win, as a matter of fact. Because if Carmelo Hayes is to win this match, and he rightfully so is, then he wouldn't... This title unification match, you don't call it a title unification match unless you plan on unifying a championship. And nowhere did the announcer to this fucking match say that the winner of this match will be recognized as the NXT Cruiserweight Champion and NXT North American Champion. For some reason, I was reading that as NXT American Champion. I was like, wouldn't that be the United States Championship? It makes no sense. Roderick Strong, by the way, carried this match. Not only did the man do an angle slam, or an Olympic slam, depending upon where you're from, 3 pendulum backbreakers, and in case you don't know, Roderick Strong, back in Ring of Honor, was known as the king of backbreakers. And then after that, oh yeah, I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. It was boring. And it didn't last very long. Sucked. AJ Styles, Grayson Waller segment. Pete Dunne tells Tony to bring the crowbar that Tony used to break Pete's hand. He told Tony that he's going to need the crowbar. I'm not sure who Tony is, but I wouldn't want to be Tony right now because he just pissed off Pete Dunne. Pete Dunne is a scary man. Nonetheless, Marcel Bartel, Imperium. I'm not trying to read Eichner's name again. Fabian Eichner, I think is his name. MSK, who's made up of, and they don't say this until halfway through the match, I don't know who the fuck MSK is, okay? So I don't know who makes up the group. So I had to write it down. Is made up of West Lee, as in West hyphen Lee, instead of like someone who's actually named Wesley, and Nash Carter. Joe Gacy interview, and that match with MSK and Riddle, and Marcel Bartel of Imperium with I thought that it was for the NXT Tag Team Championships, and then I realized something. Hey, dumbass. This is a 6-man tag team match. How the fuck is it for the NXT Tag Team Championships? You tell me. There is no 6-man tag team championships. And if there was, that would be an extremely irrelevant championship. But I had to mark it out on my notes that it's not for the... So that I knew whenever I was doing this to tell myself that it's not for the NXT Tag Team Championships. But I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. It wasn't very entertaining. The Joe Gacy interview was somewhat entertaining. I mean, not like crazy entertaining, but it was enough to wet my whistle on, you know? Okay, don't take that as a sexual way, but, you know, just shut up, I'm sleepy. Mandy Rose versus Raquel, yeah, I think her name's Raquel Gonzalez versus Cora Jade. I was expecting Rose to do some sort of finishing maneuver in order to win this match, and I said this on the first recording that I did. I wasn't expecting her to finish it so fast. Like, it's almost like they came in, one of them got through out. I remember that. I remember, like, it's hard to keep up with, you know? And you would figure as a wrestling fan that it would be easier to keep up with rather than it just being like a one and done, a one and out of here. That's all that happened, was that someone ends up being just thrown out of the ring, and then they try to make it seem like it's a one-on-one match when in reality it wasn't. And Cora Jade, after being thrown out of the ring for the 7th or 8th time, or the 3rd or 4th time, Cora Jade gets the idea that she can probably get one over on Mandy Rose, and decides to put Rose in or almost try to put Rose in a cradle, but Rose just pins her, like, right there, hanging onto the ropes, using the ropes as leverage, and then just almost like Luthez press pin or Hurricanrana pin on Cora Jade. And the announcers, the commentators were like, oh, Cora Jade is such a rookie. She fell for that mistake. She fell for that. And then I'm like, okay, I guess that's all that... I mean, that's really what happened. And then I was like, where's the finish, you know? Where's the... Oh my God, she kicked out. So close. She kicked out. Oh, and here comes the other person. Oh, and here comes the other person. You know, like in triple threat matches, usually you see a struggle because you're throwing someone out of the ring, and then they keep coming back at an opportune moment to stop the pin. But this one was like over. It was not only over, it was over rover. If it wasn't over once, it was over twice. No near falls, nothing like that. But now I take you to the NXT Championship match, and let me tell you, like I said before, it was boring. Wasn't even enough to wet my whistle on. And I'm not trying to make that sound like it does sound, but whenever I say wet my whistle, I mean didn't keep me on the edge of my seat. I wasn't at all entertained. I don't care if Braun Breaker is someone's... What is he, like? Someone's... He's related to somebody. I'm not sure who it is. I was told that he's like Rick Steiner's ex-wife's husband or something. You know? Like... Oh, God. Rick Steiner had a kid. Now Rick Steiner doesn't have a kid. I mean, I can see it in his face. He looks like he needs to change his name, too. I can't tell you the number of wrestlers that I've heard with the name Braun. And it's always something to do with a Braun Strowman is basically Braun Strongman. Braun Breaker is basically saying that he's going to break you. So, I don't understand why it can't be like, I'm drawing a blank here, but why it can't be something along the lines of Cora Jade. Take her for example. What a name, Cora Jade. And she's pretty generic right now, but I remember when Alexa Bliss first started wrestling, at least in WWE NXT, she used to come out and she was like a wrestler type deal thing, where it was just like her, and she would come out in a tutu, and her music was all flamboyant, and she would blow glitter, and she gave off the impression like she slaps her pussy with glitter, like she's a fairy, a glitter fairy in a way. But it's extremely prevalent to me that these names, Braun Breaker, yeah, that's really generic. Thank you. Oh, what's his name? Braun Breaker. Oh, okay. Does he break people? Like, that's the first impression that I get. I don't like him at all. And I hate the fact that he's the new NXT champion. In case you didn't watch it. But it sucks because I don't want to see Tommaso Ciampa go to the main roster and then get fired. Because, that's a budget cut. But they do this once in a while. Think about what happened this time last year, or 2 years ago. I want to say last year, but it was probably 2 years ago to Rhea Ripley, for instance. Ripley, who came over to the WWE after losing to Asuka in NXT. It was probably 2 years ago. Because they said nobody can handle Asuka. And then before that NXT before that NXT episode ended, I remember specifically that Rhea Ripley, her music played, and she came out basically like, oh, but maybe I can handle Asuka. And then the next NXT event before the Royal Rumble, the Women's Royal Rumble, of course. And what a way to make a debut at the Royal Rumble. AJ Styles did it, right? Rusev did it before becoming Morrow. But it's gonna suck. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that Ciampa is going to be making his main roster debut, and I could be wrong about this, but because I haven't read any news articles about it or anything like that, and I just don't see him having a second match with Braun Breaker, or a third or fourth match if that was the tiebreaker like they said that it was, because Ciampa beat him one-on-one the first time. The second time he got pinned, Ciampa got pinned in War Games. And for this week, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the podcast. Have a great day. And that is a wrap.